Hello, in this video we're looking at two new amps from Oripure and they've graciously sent me them to review. Although they have contacted me to review them, I am going to be as honest as I possibly can, as I am in every video. So let's take a look at them. It is the OAH O5 and the OAH 15. Ta-da! Oripure are most known for producing really good pickups at a super competitive price point, and now they've taken a step into that mini amp head market with these little beasts. Let's take a closer look to see which one you might want to choose if you want to choose them at all. So first off, these amps they're really beautiful. They have a super sturdy metal casing. They are like super heavy for their size. The paint job is wonderful. A lot of companies that are producing at this price point and a lot more that are known for maybe more budget gear sometimes don't get it right when it comes to paint jobs and colors. These look amazing and they look quite stylish. Now, I wouldn't put these in the budget band. These are quite mid-priced for what they are, and I think the kind of casing and the decoration reflects that. Apart from them looking cool, their functionality is quite good. These amps cover clean tones through to that kind of crunchy overdrive. The tubes here are giving you a great tone and it's not taking up the same space as like a 1970s fridge. Both of these amps are single channel heads, so there's no switch between dirty and clean. You just set your settings and you go away. The 5 watt uses one 12AX7 preamp tube and one EL84 power tube and one 6Z4 rectifier tube. The 15 watt uses one 12AX7 preamp tube and two EL84 power tubes. Both amps have a switch on the back as well for 110 volts versus 220 volts, so no matter where you are, you should have the correct power supply. And they both have 8 ohm and 16 ohm outputs on the back. This is a big plus for me. It can be a nightmare trying to find a cab to match your amp ohmage, so just having that choice is super handy. There is volume and there is gain on both the amps. Obviously, when you turn up your gain, you're going to get more of that crunch and more of that kind of overdrive feel. It won't drift into that heavy distortion for pinch harmonics or, you know, if you're playing a death metal band, but you can get up to that kind of classic rock distortion, especially with humbuckers through this amp. The EQs are super responsive. You've got your bass, your mid and your treble. Although it might seem like a small detail, these metal knobs on here actually have a great feel and they've got quite a nice bit of resistance when you're turning, so they do feel that extra wee bit of quality. I think other mini brand heads can feel almost like toys because it's these little details like having knobs that turn quite well, the metal casing, just the overall feel, even the weight adds the kind of sense of you're getting what you pay for on this. But let's look at the main difference between these two units because they do look quite similar and they do sound quite similar. One thing is of course the output, but there's also a couple of features which might sway you for one amp over the other. The 5 watt version offers you a bright switch which isn't available on the 15 watt version. It will sweeten up the high end of your tone and give you a little bit of more option in your overall guitar tone. Now, some people say that 5 watt amps are only for your home or studio to use and it can compete with a drummer. I've used this in the practice room with a drummer. It can hold its own quite well and it would suit, you know, smaller stages. The 15 watt is louder, so if you've got a drummer who just plays unbelievably loud or you're playing in quite large spaces and quite large stages, then maybe the 15 watt might be the one for you. Also on the 15 watt you can knock it back to 1 watt, so you can have it as a home practice amp and you won't worry about waking the neighbors or getting any noise complaints. So that replaces the warm and bright switch, which is on the 5 watt. The 15 watt is $100 more than the 5 watt, so that might also come under your choice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hear samples from both. Now, I thought that both these amps were great. I do personally usually prefer a little bit more gain from an amp, but of course these amps will take pedals quite well. If you're looking for a little tube amp that's quite solid and it's not going to take up much space, but also sound pretty good, pretty clean and pretty clear, but also not take up loads of shelf room or, you know, take over another corner in your room, I think it could be a really good buy for you. Also with that option of the 8 to 16 ohm output as well, it just takes out so much hassle. The exposed tubes do mean that if you're gigging, you should have it in a sturdy case, and that would be one problem that I might have if I was a touring musician or a musician playing gigs, that you will need to get a case for it, because I don't trust having tubes exposed. I'd much prefer them in a metal casing. I also would have liked to have seen an effects loop in the back of this amp. Other small amps are offering that, and I think it's something that is missing. Also, maybe in a perfect world, perhaps a channel switch between your clean and your overdrive. I've had these amps now for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, and I've gave a lot of my guitarist friends a go through them, just because sometimes I can get overwhelmed by something that's shiny and new. But everyone has been saying that they're really clear and they're really clean amps, and everyone, absolutely everyone, has commented on how they look as well. I know it shouldn't be a thing, but it's just nice to have nice gear in your room. All in all, to wrap it up, these amps, they look great. The design on them's amazing. The knobs and the control switches and everything on them feel really good quality. They also have the option between a 16 ohm and an 8 ohm output, which is super handy, especially if you have more than one cab as well, because remember, your speaker and the cab that you're running your amp through can drastically change how an amp sounds, so you've got lots of choice there too, especially if you're a recording artist or if you've got your own studio. The clean channel on them is absolutely beaut, and I really do enjoy the overdrive tone that you get from these amps. The main downside for me is that they don't have an effects loop. Even though Oripure might not be a brand that you've heard of, you might be expecting these to be super cheap. They're not. But the reason they're not is because I feel like they're really well made, they feel solid and they sound good. I think now, and including maybe the past couple of years, that we're going to be seeing more and more bespoke amps and lots of smaller brands making headway over the larger brands, because I think that the larger brands have been slacking for years. I personally like owning gear that not everybody owns as well, so that's a bit of a plus for me. I personally don't like being someone who just gets the big brand stuff all the time. There are so many companies out there who are making quality gear, and I think this one is great. I do think that a couple of different extra features would have made it amazing, but I do see these as a solid buy. Out of the two, which I would personally choose, I would probably go for the 15-watt version. It's always better just having that little bit extra. As my mother always says, you're better looking at it than looking for it. Also, I don't think the bright switch would make much of a difference to myself. I would achieve that either by EQ or an EQ pedal before going into the actual amp. The 15-watt and the volume that you can get from it means that I can pretty much set up in any stage or with any kind of group of musicians and know that I'm going to be heard. Also, having that 1-watt switch is really good for me because I have a small child, I have a wife, they don't want to always listen to me play guitar badly. Also, I have neighbours as well, so it just means that it can suit almost any space, which I find is a little bit more versatile than a warm bright switch. Now if you're someone who has, a pretty good space and you don't need that much volume and you're just looking for something you can plug in and play, perhaps the 5-watt version might be for you. So I hope this video has been useful. I hope it even made you aware of a brand that you didn't know existed before, who are making pretty good quality gear. If there is another bespoke amp maker that you've used before, please drop it down in the comments, because these videos are all about helping each other out and helping each other be more aware of what's out there for guitarists. So until the next video, thank you very much and ta-ta for now.